Good morning, Acadiana. This will be the daily AOC community media reading of the Morning Advocate, the Acadiana edition. My name will be got coronavirus information for you all up and down the chain, but we're going to do a little bit of the news first. We'll go to some obituaries and so forth. Here again, I'm reading from the Daily Advertiser. I'm sorry, not the Daily Advertiser. I'm reading from the Morning Advocate. I'm going to start off with headlines. Gordon McKinnon says the threat to fire employees amid the coronavirus scare was a little bit too harsh. High-profile personal injury attorney Gordon McKinnon says in an email he sent to his staff warning them not to meet with anyone from New Orleans or Jefferson parishes, and even though they let him, or not even to let them into the office, may appear to be a bit too harsh or uncaring, but that wasn't the intent he had. The story goes farther. No, that's not the right story. Sorry, folks, moved under the wrong thing. A little unsure about how this whole deal works. We're going to switch stories and go straight to massive layoffs in Acadiana restaurant hotels as the coronavirus slows business travel. Layoffs began at hotels and restaurants in Acadiana as the business has slowed due to the new coronavirus and government measures aimed at slowing its speed. Restaurants have been among the hardest hit since states' mandates that restaurants could only serve takeout. The same order has also closed movie theaters, bars, gyms, casinos in an attempt to curb the rising number of coronavirus cases. Hotels and motels are also cutting employees as travel has all but halted. Leisure and hospitality could be among the hardest hit sectors of the economy in the inevitable coronavirus recession, according to a Brookings Institute. In New Orleans, restaurants are laying off employees by the hundreds. Tens of thousands could be out of work in the hotel industry. Lafayette, Abacus Buffet owner Robert Frugier had to let go about 30 employees until the crisis passes, leaving his Cajun restaurant with only 3 employees. But instead of trying to turn them loose, he is partnering with them with Maison Tile of Grand Coteau and Cisco Foods to provide displaced workers $1 to-go meals from noon to noon daily starting on Monday. I hope word gets out to people so that they know they're going to do this, and where maybe other industry leaders will follow suit as well. Our generous citizens may decide to lend a hand and donate food to the cause, Frugier said. We're only going to be able to provide about 50 per day, but we've already had people step up and pay for an entire meal for displaced workers. Thomas David, who began working at Frugier's restaurant 9 years ago, is appreciative. The parent of one child with another coming in about a month, David had both of his jobs put on hold. He is also a member of the popular Cajun band, the Pine Leaf Boys. He said he had a feeling after last week that his job and others might be put on hold, but Frugier's offer of $1 meal could help lots of displaced workers during the coming days. We also see this around Lafayette in times of need, he said. Somebody always steps up. It's great for anyone who's affected. There's lots of people who are affected. A lot of those restaurant workers and hospitality workers are out of work completely. We have to deal with those like we are who are really struggling. It's great. The hotel industry will also have a number of displaced workers due to the coronavirus. According to the U.S. Travel Association, the coronavirus will cause $809 billion blow to the economy and lead to a loss of 4.6 million travel-related jobs before May. Wow. In Lafayette, that will mean about 19,251 room nights will be lost and 280,113 event attendees will not be arriving. That'll result in a $36 million in lost revenue, says Ben Berthelot, president and CEO of Lafayette Travel. Thursday's cancellations alone resulted in a $4 million loss. We were projecting a very solid next 8 weeks with a 75% occupancy for March, so that's now down to 13% for reporting hotels, Berthelot said. Some hotels have had to lay off half their staff or more and go to skeleton crews. However, the next 8 weeks after this is going to look very strong if things turn around. So the sooner this clears up, the easier it will be to salvage this year and recover. Neil Patel, whose company AAA Hotel Management Company owns 4 hotels in Lafayette, has said that he let go most of his staff on Tuesday. Only 4 or 5 employees are staffing each hotel, down from the normal 25. He may have to let more people go next week. That stings, he noted, as the pandemic comes during March, the month his company normally does record revenue. Now almost 90% of his reservations have been canceled. We knew this was coming, said Patel, whose company opened 2 hotels in Lafayette last year. We were a little bit proactive. It was the only jobs we had, and they are filing for unemployment now. We're not thinking we're going to recover from this in the near future. We don't expect this to come back for the next 12, 18 to 24 months. Meanwhile, Ravi Dagula, owner of Mouton Plantation, has paused operations for 15 days and recommended his 10 employees file for unemployment. His bed and breakfast lost 250 reservations through June, which lost him both revenue but also required him to refund their deposits. This is a strange time, Douglas said. I just didn't see it coming to an end. It will pass, but the stigma of the coronavirus will last for a long time. The travel industry in Lafayette will take a big hit in 2020. 2020 is over for us. It's better to put your money aside. Let's everybody go to work for 2021. Just keep your key personnel. Doubletree by Hilton on Pinhook has seen its occupancy dip 15 to 20% and has had to furlough at least 80% of its staff this week while trying to stay open with basic amenities. General Manager Jimmy Thaxton said, "Making this announcement to his staff was the worst point in my career. All your coworkers, all your friends, seeing them not knowing what the future holds and being unable to help. It's awful," Thaxton said. "A lot of people are prepared for a short-term crisis, but the others are living paycheck to paycheck. They're going to need assistance to survive a 30-day furlough. We're hoping by March 29th it will improve and people will start moving around again, but we just don't know what the future holds." Other restaurants like Central Pizza and Tula Tacos and Amigos are taking a wait-and-see approach. Co-owner John Peterson said that they want to see how the takeout and delivery numbers are and how things are looking financially next week before they make any decisions about letting their staff go. That article was written by staff writer Adam Daigle and Dan Boudreau. My apologies. Next, we'll go to see what's going on over here in the news. Clay Higgins not backing down from a coronavirus response criticism. It's still America. This is an editorial comment. This guy's a kook. Back to the news. U.S. Representative Clay Higgins, a Republican from Lafayette who doesn't live in Lafayette, on Thursday remained unbowed and said he's unbloodied politically after releasing a video statement this week in which he criticized Governor John Bel Edwards' mandates to close businesses as access to his authority has harmed Louisiana's economy. While he conceded the political establishment has been critical of his video released Monday, he said business owners support his position and many have contacted him to say so. Speaking via telephone video Thursday, the 3rd District Congressman said he's following the best advice of the President's Task Force on the Coronavirus, the Center for Disease Control, and the National Institute of Health, and other leading experts in closing his office to the public and by allowing his congressional employees to work from home. He's following other guidelines too, excluding social distancing and extreme hygiene, he said, nor did he imply that the government's positions were necessarily wrong on their own merits. Bud Higgins said it is still wrong to mandate private businesses to close rather than to urge them or entice them to do so. There's a big difference between sober and serious advice, he said, and commanding from an executive perch their compliance. The first part of free enterprise, he said, is being free. Higgins said the government needs executive authority to respond to emergencies, put law into effect to handle perils like floods and hurricanes, which involve a portion of the state. That includes closing government buildings and controlling egress and ingress to certain areas and restoring order. He said Edwards, with federal help, can also declare the whole state an emergency area, which he supports, but he said the power has taken a very thin legal authority. He also said the Louisiana people are as troubled by the shutdown of businesses as they are by the health threat. He suggested that as many as 30% of businesses now closed may not ever reopen, which could be ratchet up unemployment for the long term, although many Louisiana That's a typo. Although many Louisiana might get sick because of the virus, he said Louisianans will be affected by the economic turndown. Unemployment, bankruptcy, stress. It's not good for our health either, he said. It's unnecessary to crash the economy and economic well-being and stability of every Louisiana family in order to respond to this crisis. Higgins said he's urging constituents to follow best practices in their own lives, including staying home, social distancing, and taking care of mom and pop if they're elderly and more at risk from the effects of the coronavirus. The government, he said, should incentivize citizens, not order them to do things for the common good, such as altering their business plans or using energy prudently. He would measure government action versus we should measure government action versus people's constitutional freedoms. It's still America. It's still Louisiana. I have the right to disagree, he said. The governor and I will get over it, although those people that die probably won't. Our next article, we'll run down here and see 7 coronaviruses are confirmed here in Acadiana, including the Department of Transportation. My friend Sean Wilson's got it. You probably also heard that Sean Payton has it. Back to the article. This is written by Claire Taylor. The number of coronaviruses in Acadiana has grown to 7. According to Louisiana data from the Louisiana Department of Health and Hospitals as of 5:30 report on Thursday, Lafayette Parish has 3 confirmed coronavirus cases. St. Landry Parish has 2, and Iberia and Acadia parishes have 1. One of the Lafayette cases is Sean Wilson, Secretary of the Louisiana Department of Transportation and Development, according to the report by Will Sentinel of the Advocate. I think we all expect to see additional positive cases throughout this region, says Tina Stefanski, Regional Medical Director for the Louisiana Department of Health, said Wednesday, because there are a few hundred outstanding tests at commercial labs. The result of at least 300 COVID-19 tests in Acadiana are pending at a drive-through screening and testing center set up outside the Cajun Dome in Lafayette. 107 people were tested Thursday for the coronavirus, and 89 were tested on Wednesday. Officials reported Monday that another 100 people were tested through other medical entities. Stefanski, citing privacy issues, released few details about the Acadian individuals who tested positive. Sean Wilson, who's 50, told the Advocate he started feeling bad last weekend. He tested negative for the flu on Sunday and learned Wednesday he was positive for the coronavirus. Wilson did not indicate if the second positive test is in Lafayette Parish as a family member. The number of deaths in Louisiana from the virus grew to 10 Thursday, when Louisiana health officials reported the death of a 44-year-old from Orleans Parish who had had other health problems, and a 91-year-old resident of Lambeth House, a retirement and nursing home in New Orleans, where the virus has claimed 5 lives. Statewide, there are 392 confirmed cases of coronavirus. There's a lot more we don't know about this virus, Stefanski said, including the level of its spread through people without symptoms. The actions people take today will have an impact on the number of cases and on the demand on hospitals in the weeks and months to come, she said. Officials in Lafayette and St. Mary parishes urge residents to continue to practice safety measures such as working from home, not shaking hands, washing your hands often for at least 20 seconds, and limit your grocery shopping and avoid groups of people. Particularly vulnerable are the elderly and anyone with an underlying health condition such as diabetes, heart disease, or lung disease. And that was end of the article. Claire Taylor. Here again, we're reading from the Advocate. This is an AOC community media public service for those of you who may want to listen rather than read the paper, or those of you who are unable to read the paper at all. And we're giving you slightly longer form stories than you'll get on conventional audio channels. Our next article, Lafayette Parish schools won't move forward with distance learning during the coronavirus shutdown. Here's why. The Lafayette Parish school system has opted to forego distance learning during the coronavirus closure to avoid widening performance gaps between children with internet and computer access and those without. The district included the announcement in a update bulletin posted on its website on Tuesday. The statement said all required lessons, quizzes, projects, and other assignments will be suspended, and parents are encouraged to contact their child's teacher for supplemental educational materials. LPSS spokesman Allison Dickerson said the change was made after administrators reviewed a random sampling of student access surveys teachers conducted Friday before the schools closed. Teachers gave printed surveys to older students and helped poll younger students about their technology and internet access at home. The sampling made it clear that distance learning wouldn't be a viable option for all students. The district explored the idea of a temporary internet access for students without home Wi-Fi, but decided it wasn't possible at this time. Foregoing active instruction was the only way to keep things equitable, he said. Whenever you're in school, teachers can access the learning and can make sure it's always going forward and they're addressing the needs of our students. We can't do that in a system where schools are closed, Dickerson said. We want to do what's good for our entire population, not just for the select few who have internet access. Dickerson said we're making parents aware of the changes through updates in the district's website, their social media channels, and through text messages and emails sent through the district's J-Campus system. Parents are also encouraged to submit questions to the district through a new online form, and they'll consolidate answers to common questions in a public Q&A form, she said. The spokesman said the district is assessing the viability of providing students without access to internet access with some paper materials. Students and their parents should first contact their child's teacher for advisement, but Dickerson said they're concerned about students going in person to collect the materials from a teacher or the district office. They want to maintain strict social distancing as much as possible, she said. We're figuring out day-to-day solutions to this problem as we go. It's changing hour by hour, and it's probably not even fair enough statement, more like minute to minute. It's a very fluid situation. All we can do is make decisions with the information we currently have on hand. Julia Reed, president of the Lafayette Parish Association of Educators, said teachers received an email Tuesday with the new guidance and provided a list of supplemental learning materials and resources they can provide to parents interested in continuing their students' learning. Reed says she's spoken with and recorded messages from teachers frustrated by the lack of teaching because they want to provide a sense of normalcy to their students and don't want them to backslide. They're also concerned with standardized testing, school evaluations, their paychecks, despite waivers from Governor John Bel Edwards and waiver applications filed by the federal government. Teachers are understandably nervous, Reed said. The association president says she understands the school system's need to ensure achievement and access gaps don't widen for students without means during the closures. District administrators think of the bigger picture, she said. I think the school system is doing the best they can right now, Reed said. Reed, who teaches 5th grade English arts at S.J. Montgomery, recommended that parents who don't have formal materials encourage their children to read. Reading can touch on many topics and can also help reduce screen time if parents are concerned about overexposure. And the public library is still offering drive-through services. Teachers said it's important for parents to show themselves some grace during this difficult time. Most are not trained in educators, and parents shouldn't expect themselves to replicate a model classroom environment in their homes while handling work and other needs during the pandemic, she said. Reed said providing emotional support and focusing on the health and happiness of your family is just as important for the child's well-being and stability. I think parents shouldn't put too much pressure on themselves to try to do a full day of homeschooling, Reed said. If they want to do stuff, they can, but I think the best thing is to be emotionally supportive of the kids because it's a break in their routine, and that's always very scary to kids. That article concludes it was written by Katie Galliano, also of the Acadiana Advocate. Let's see, moving along to the next bit of news. Oil is at lowest prices in 2 decades. Lafayette economy on a familiar precipice. This is written by Ben Myers. Freshly rebounded from last decade's oil crash, the Lafayette area economy is once again on the precipice that is both familiar and sudden. Crude oil is not known for long-term stability, but steadily modest prices following the 2014 crash have given reason for cautious optimism. Then came the rare 1-2 punch, a demand crunch followed by a supply glut in rapid order. As panic over the coronavirus pandemic emptied airplanes, Saudi Arabia and Russia failed to agree on production cuts, and Saudi Arabia then doubled down by increasing its output. The Saudis said, well, everybody needs a lesson in economics. They said, not only are we not going to reduce it, we're going to reverse earlier restrictions and put us back to 2014, said Eric Smith, an associate director of the Tulane University Energy Institute, which in retrospect is a much simpler world than the world we live in today. Lafayette area gross domestic product shrunk in the second fastest rate in the country in 2016, thanks to a 3-year crude oil swoon in which prices bottomed out at $37 a barrel before ascending back into the $50 to $60 range where it stood at the start of this year. On Wednesday evening, oil was trading below $21 for the barrel for the first time in 2 decades. No one knows how long oil prices remain so deflated, but the clock is ticking as to how long local energy companies and their suppliers can hang on. I can tell you in an unadulterated fashion that these prices stay where they are in 6 months or will probably not be in business, says Mark Miller, owner of Merlin Oil and Gas, a small Lafayette company that arranges offshore leases. In one way, Lafayette may be better positioned to survive the current oil crash than previous ones, including the most recent in 2014, as the city has attracted non-energy companies, particularly those in healthcare and technology. Energy companies and related business comprise 29.4% of the Lafayette gross domestic product as of October 2019, according to LEDA's analysis of federal data. That was down from 45% in 2015 and roughly 70% in the 80s. I'm going to congeal that and say we're down from 70% in the 80s to 30% right now, based on oil. The reduced dependency on oil and gas has helped Lafayette avoid the fate of Houma, which historically is home to a similar mix of businesses. Lafayette unemployment grew 0.4% last year, mirroring a statewide average, while Houma continued to lose jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We all have something in Lafayette that Houma does not have. You guys have diversity, said economist Lauren Scott. Current circumstances are unlike 2014 in some unpleasant ways, however. One thing, the crash of the last decade followed abnormally high prices that exceeded $100 a barrel, nearly double the price before the coronavirus showed up in the markets. The level of inflation is unsustainable, Miller said, but it also generated an investment that helped him endure the crash. The $100 price got everybody interested again, Miller said. We all in the business understand that it wasn't a realistic number and it wasn't good for the entire economy, but it did spark a lot of new activity, and some of that new activity was holdover through when the prices fell. The global coronavirus pandemic, meanwhile, has already prompted government authorities to essentially shut down the entertainment and other retail sectors. While some businesses slumped in the oil bust of the past decade, they recovered quickly and achieved pre-2014 levels last year, Greg Gautreaux, president of LEDA, said. With known coronavirus cases quickly mounting in Louisiana, officials have warned that restrictions on local commerce will remain in place indefinitely with yet untold consequences. The Saudi-Russian agreement is also unpredictable. Smith of the Tulane Energy Institute said the rest of the year is probably a write-off, with pre-coronavirus prices sticking around through the end of 2021. Wow. Trump said he thinks prices will begin to recover by June, since, in his view, the Russians will not be able to withstand a prolonged crash. But Scott said he is far more concerned about the ultimate outcome. If I'm incorrect about the Russians blinking and this lasts a while, we're going to see it. We're going to see some negative employment effects starting probably in the summertime, Scott said. Energy companies suggested to post crash prices in the per barrel range by getting suppliers to reduce costs and other efficiencies, such as standardizing offshore platform design, according to Scott's economic outlook forecast for the state. Energy companies have learned to be very cautious with things like cash flow and index viewers, said Troy Wayman, president of One Acadiana. There's a recognition that oil prices going to $7 a barrel are slim to none. at $20 to $30 a barrel for an extended period of time. However, the industry will suffer, Wyman said. I'll ask his thoughts on the current oil prices at the beginning of an interview on Wednesday. Hyman was succinct. They suck. That's the short of it, he said. That's the end of that article. That was brought to us by Ben Myers, staff writer. Our next article, we're going to go down here. I think we've got a couple to go. And then we'll move on and get you the things that you really want, like the... All right, let's go to local obituaries. I know people like to know about that. My apologies while I look for them in the physical part of the paper. The online from which I am reading contains the entire state's obituaries, and I don't think anybody much cares about the rest of the world. We're talking about funerals right here in Lafayette, our friends. All right. There are no funerals scheduled in Lafayette today at all. So that concludes the reading of today's obituaries. Sorry, that didn't take a little longer. This is just terrible. I'm having a hard time finding enough news to sustain this for a whole hour. Let me go back over here. Pregnancy during the pandemic, how providers are rewriting birthing care standards amidst the coronavirus. At one point, the medical procedure, Lacey Smith, was scheduled for a Friday at Ochsner Medical Center in New Orleans, could hardly be put off for a pandemic. She was going for a cesarean section. She was going in for a cesarean section, her second, though Smith and her husband, a pediatrician, Mark Lister, have learned this week to take it in stride a few 11th-hour changes in their birth plan. New and tighter restrictions come daily for Ochsner as the hospital copes with the rampant spread of the new coronavirus and the respiratory disease, COVID-19, throughout the city. Trying, Smith, 35, said, and keeping a level head as she stood by this week on the front porch of her mid-city, belly ripe with a 2-year-old Eleanor traipsing around the front steps. As Louisiana wraps up its first week of extreme measures to limit the spread of the highly infectious disease, uncertainties about the coronavirus, coupled with recommended social distancing practices, are transforming how pregnant women receive care. While many hospitals are limiting elective procedures, that simply isn't possible for 60,000 plus births which happen each year in Louisiana. Despite her scheduled surgery, Smith has been forced to be flexible. The hospital told her to ignore the 9 a.m. reliable time and wait for a call. The idea, she said, was to whisk her back to the operating room without delay. She says she is eager to know what she can know about the coronavirus and its risk, but is trying to temper that curiosity as the delivery date approaches. I want some information, but I'm not letting myself go there, she said. It's not productive just to go down rabbit holes. Pregnancy itself suppresses the immune system and makes the heart work harder, and many infectious diseases affect pregnant women more than the general population, said Amber Narish, OBGYN, an infectious disease specialist who treats pregnant women with HIV, the flu, syphilis, and was on the front lines of the H1N1 epidemic in 2009. Right now, COVID-19 doesn't appear to target pregnant women more than other people, but much remains to be seen. During the H1N1 pandemic, said it wasn't immediately clear that pregnant women were more susceptible to the disease, but now they know they were highly vulnerable. It did take a couple of months to see it, though, she said. I would expect the data to start emerging for COVID-19. As scientists learn more about how the disease affects moms and babies, hospitals are writing the standards for birthing care. Telemedicine will play a big role in minimizing contact between pregnant women and their healthcare providers in facilities where they are more likely to be exposed to the coronavirus, said Joe Biglio, who oversees maternal and fetal medicine across Ochsner-owned hospitals. One of the best ways patients can protect themselves, pregnant or not, is to avoid contact with others as much as possible, said Biglio. Smith, a divorce lawyer who was due to deliver Eleanor in August of 2017, the day before Louisiana streets, including her own, were steeped in floodwater. The baby didn't come. Then her blood pressure rose due to a rare complications she called the HELP syndrome, leading to a cesarean. Because of that competition, she has taken daily blood pressure readings over the course of this pregnancy, with the fetal data fed to a monitor on an app and accessible to her doctors. Hospitals will move to virtual portals rather than in-person visits. Like Smith, patients will monitor their own blood pressure and report their weight to doctors. Hospitals also rearrange hospital access to keep pregnant women without COVID-19 from interacting with anybody with the disease. As she walked into the waiting room for her doctor's visit in Metairie to find most of the chairs covered with "Do Not Sit" signs with only corner seats available for social distancing. There were more limitations. Ochsner this week developed a no-visitor policy with only spousal exception for child delivery. That means Eleanor stays home with her grandparents on Friday, like it or not. On Thursday came this wrinkle. Once he's there, her husband can't leave or return for over the 2 or 3 days they're expected to be at the hospital, she said. Lister, who has built a practice in New Orleans on pediatric house calls, said his biggest concern now, with his wife's delivery so close, was steering clear of infected patients of his own. Ochsner rules now screen out visitors with fevers of over 100.4. Lister hopes not to be in that number. I've had to stop twice and think if I'm going to see a patient who's sick, whether or not I would be barred from going in with Lacey, he said. There's been the primary dilemma, but we're getting close enough to the actual go date. I'm less and less concerned. Smith figures Ochsner won't keep her any longer than necessary. My hunch is they're going to try to move people out, but she says she doesn't feel rushed. She says she feels like she's going to be more forgiving front end of what promises to be a worsening pandemic. I feel like we're getting in early-ish still, she said. Eventually, the hospitals expect there will be pregnant women and patients with COVID-19. Ochsner has plans to evaluate coming in for labor who have symptoms, and those women will be kept in a separate labor and delivery area, according to Big EO. Once a woman with COVID-19 gives birth, the hospital will discuss whether or not to keep the infant in the room with her at a distance of 6 feet or with another member of the family to care for the infant. Although early data suggests there are few infections in children under 10, a new study of over 2,000 children in China with the coronavirus found that although most cases were mild to asymptomatic, about 6% became severely ill. Children under the age of 1, the study found, are the most vulnerable. Experts are not recommending C-sections in favor of vaginal birth as possible, even though it does allow for more control over timing. C-section is a major abdominal surgery with risk, said Rebecca G., an obstetrician and former Louisiana Secretary of Health who now oversees LSU Healthcare Division. Surgery keeps patients in the hospital longer and creates a higher risk infection. There is some reassuring evidence for women who receive a COVID-19 diagnosis during pregnancy. Breast milk does not appear to transmit the disease, although women with the virus should use a pump rather than to feed at the breast, said Nourish. A 38-person study of moms and their newborns showed none with what scientists call vertical transmission, the transfer of the disease from the mom to the baby before birth. There are some problems with early labor and fetal distress, according to a small study of 13 women with COVID-19. One infant was stillborn, but 9 out of 10 of the babies delivered got top marks on the APGAR test, which measures newborn health. In Louisiana, where women die of pregnancy-related causes more than perhaps anywhere else in the United States, the coronavirus could be a threat at an already at-risk population. We need to be concerned for patients who have diabetes, heart disease, and lung disease, said Big Yo, along with people on steroids, transfer patients, and cancer survivors. In Louisiana, we have a number of pregnant women that these things apply to. And if possible, experts agree that although pregnant women should get access to care, those that plan on growing their families should reassess. If you have plenty of time and would like to plan your family, it might not be the best time right now, said Rebecca G. Okay, that's the end of that article. And as a comment, asking people to negotiate their family planning over this is one of those little sidebars that you just don't think about ahead of time. It's kind of rough out there, folks. Okay, I'd also like to remind you that AOC, during the next few weeks, while you can't see any festival, will be replaying festival almost every day, so you can tune in there to get your fill. We're also offering a wide variety, or a growing variety, I should say, of tools and techniques and tips for teachers and people who would need to do outreach to their students or other groups. Okay, Sean Payton is doing well. After coronavirus diagnosis, Sean Payton is well-being the number one concern, Goodell said. In the hours after New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton announced he had tested positive for the novel coronavirus. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell released a statement on the matter. Our primary concern is for Sean's health and well-being, Goodell wrote. He did the right thing by seeking medical attention, and we wish him a speedy recovery. It shouldn't come as a surprise as this pandemic continues that members of our NFL family will be directly impacted. This news underscores the importance of everyone following the advice of medical and public health experts to protect themselves and others. Payton is the first known person with NFL to test positive for COVID-19. Payton has not been hospitalized due to the virus and does not have a high fever or any respiratory issues. He is currently quarantined at home for 4 more days, and he says he's feeling better now than he was earlier in the week. So our guy has the disease, and he's feeling better. I'm glad about that. You're still listening here again. My name is Ed, and we're reading the Morning Advocate, local news as much as possible. Man killed during an officer-involved shooting in Iota on Wednesday night. This is yesterday's article I didn't cover. A man was shot and killed during an altercation with police officers in Iota Wednesday night. The shooting happened when Iota Police Department officers responded to a residence on 4th Street at 10:05 p.m. and found a man sitting in a vehicle with a firearm. At some point during the encounter, the man was shot by at least one officer. Louisiana State Police Troop I spokesman Trooper Thomas Gossin said in a statement. The man was taken to an area hospital for treatment where he was pronounced dead. The man's identity has not been released by law enforcement. No officers were injured during the incident. State Police Bureau of Investigations is handling the investigation into the officer-involved shooting. Information on how many officers were present, what type of call the officers were responding to, and if the man pointed the firearm at the officers is not immediately available. The investigation is active. Well, go figure that. Louisiana has 392 known coronavirus cases as of Thursday, with 7 in Louisiana. Louisiana now has 292 cases of the new coronavirus, state health officials said Thursday afternoon. 7 of those positive tests were in the Acadiana region. The majority of the rest were in New Orleans. The state numbers climbed from Thursday morning when 347 cases of COVID-19 or coronavirus disease 19 were reported. The first 2 cases in Lafayette Parish were confirmed Wednesday night, and another case in the parish was diagnosed Thursday afternoon. The first cases were confirmed in surrounding parishes by Thursday, with 2 in St. Landry Parish and 1 each in Iberia and Acadiana. The state lab has completed 899 tests, the Louisiana Department of Health said Thursday afternoon. Commercial lab tests are not included in the total, but their positive results are counted as cases. New data from Johns Hopkins University said Louisiana now has the second highest deaths from coronavirus per capita in the U.S. All 10 coronavirus deaths in the state have been in the New Orleans area. 5 deaths have been reported during the coronavirus crisis at Lambeth House, an uptown retirement home that's the state's only known cluster of cases. As of Thursday, 13 people have tested positive. The state releases its most recent test results at 9:30, which is about 10 minutes ago, and again at 5:30 p.m. daily. So there may be something newer than that particular article even. Moving along, see what else we got here. I think we want to read horoscopes too, don't we? That's going to be somewhere in there. Let's look for the horoscopes. I think right now we'd all like a horoscope that said everything's going to be all right. Okay, today's horoscopes. This is here again. Today is March 20th. Pisces, listen more and say less. If you give someone too much personal information, they will use it against you. Let your intuition lead the way when dealing with sensitive issues. Aries, take a closer look at an offer and what you may have to do and find a way to adapt your skills to fit the goal you have in mind. Present what you have to offer with finesse. Taurus, a problem with a loved one will add to your responsibilities. Use good judgment. If something doesn't sound correct, you do due diligence before you get involved. Gemini, put in the time and reap the rewards. Don't expect to get help from someone who talks big but does little. If you run the show, you will be successful. Cancer, take a moment to gather your thoughts. Taking a day spa, attending an event will take your mind off stressful situations and will give you a chance to reflect, put things in perspective. Yeah, let's try that spa during the quarantine. Memories will prompt you to visit an old familiar place. If you want something, ask for it. If you don't like something, say so. Honesty is in your best interest. Virgos, say no to anyone trying to use you. Make choices that will bring about a positive change. A romantic gesture will bring you closer to a loved one. Libras, if you explain your intentions, you will get the help and support you need to move forward. A look at different locations and opportunities will inspire you to make a change. Scorpios, spend time with people who are enthusiastic about the same things you are. Love is prevalent, but you can also be daunting if you feel uncertain. Shopping will lead to a great buy. Sagittarius, you won't be able to please everyone, so take care of yourself first. Considering partnering with someone who is trying to do something similar to you, personally or professionally. Capricorn, avoid a controversial topic with friends and relatives. Remain neutral and concentrate on what you can achieve. Being productive will bring higher rewards. Romance is favored. And our friends Aquarius, emotions can be close to the surface. Refuse to let anyone pressure you into doing something you don't feel good about. You don't have to impress everyone, so be true to yourself. And that puts the kibosh on today's horoscopes. I'm going to make one last perusal for what's new in the news relevant to here in Louisiana. We're going to avoid most of the national news because you get that everywhere else. All right, last call here. This one might be relevant to some of you. Tyler Biggs, staff writer for the Morning Advocate. Louisiana closes Office of Motor Vehicles throughout the state during coronavirus spread. 79 branches of the Office of Motor Vehicles throughout Louisiana will be shut indefinitely as of Friday, state government officials announced on Thursday. They directed the decision to follow both OMV employees to be home with their children and relatives and to prevent the possible spread of coronavirus at OMV offices. We don't have plexiglass at every office, said Karen St. Germain, the secretary of the agency, and it said in an interview. The OMV processes such requests as titling a vehicle, obtaining a driver's license, and reinstating one that has been canceled. Going to the OMV office has not been a picnic. People who go to one of the offices in Louisiana's largest 8 cities have to wait an average of 70 minutes, according to a recent report, up from 58 minutes in 2016. The main office in Lafayette on Evangeline Two-Way doesn't have enough parking. This can require customers to circle out several times before finding a spot. While the offices are closed, the agency's online services remain open. Anyone with an expired license or vehicle tag will not be ticketed before May 10th. So you've all got a reprieve on your expired inspection stickers, which happens to include yours truly. Okay, this is about it. We're going to skip the national news here again. Most of you can find that elsewhere. Stay home, stay positive. If you need information or help on how to doing outreach or doing online sharing, check the AOC website at aocinc.org. Right on the front page, you'll see a couple of links. I think one says for teachers, but that applies to anybody. Other people can tune into. There's a blog next to that. Staying close while remaining distance also gives away some good pointers on how you can get in touch. You can be isolated, but you don't have to be alone. Talk to each other. Stay close, my friends. This is Ed signing out for the AOC Community Media reading of the morning news. Most people take an hour to do this. Somehow or another, I did it in 50 minutes. Take care, my friends. I'm out.